Practice reading CompTIA A+, 220-801, 220-802, in-depth, written by the best-selling author Gene Andrews, PhD, over 1 million books in print. This is going to be a combined reading of the table on page 128 and the table on 133. Table 4-4, buses listed on by throughput is separated into 6 columns: bus, bus type, data path in bits, address lines, bus frequency, and throughput. PCI Express version 2, local video, local input output, serial with up to 32 lanes, 2.5 gigahertz, up to 500 megabytes per second, seconds per lane in each direction. PCI Express version 1.1, local video and local input output. Serial with up to 16 lanes, 1.25 gigahertz, up to 250 megabytes per second per lane in each direction. PCI Express version 1, local video and local input output, serial with up to 16 lanes, 1.25 gigahertz, up to 250 megabytes per second per lane in each direction. PCI X, local input output, 64, 32, 66, 133, 266, or 533 megahertz, up to 8.5 gigabytes per second. PCI local input output, 32 or 64, 33, 66 megahertz, 133, 266, or 532 megabytes per second. AGP 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x, 8x, local video, 32, NA 6675, 100 megahertz, 266 megabytes per second, or 2.1 gigabytes per second. Firewire 400 and 800. Local input output expansion 1. Serial NA up to 3.2 gigabytes per second. USB 1.1, 2, and 3. Expansion 1. Serial 3 megahertz, 12 or 480 megabytes per second, or 5 gigabytes per second, megabits per second. And the table on page 133, table 4-5, AGP standards summarized. This table is separated into 5 columns: standard, speeds, cycles per clock beat, maximum throughput, voltage, slots supported. AGP 1, 1x, 266 megabytes per second, 3.3 volts, slots keyed to 3.3 volts. AGP 2, 1x, 2x, or 4x, 533 megabytes per second, or 1.06 gigabytes per second, 3.3 volts or 1.5 volts. Slots keyed to 1.5 volts, slot keyed to 3.3 volts, universal slot for either 1.5 volts or 1.3 volt cards. AGP Pro applies to all speeds. NA 3.3 volts or 1.5 volts. AGP Pro 3.3 volts keyed. AGP Pro 1.5 volts keyed. AGP Pro Universal either 1.5 volt or 3.3 volt cards. AGP 3 4x or 8x 2.12 gigabytes per second, 1.4 volts and zero point 0.8 volts. Universal AGP 3.0 4x by 4x 8x slot. Slot keyed to 1.5 volts. Slot keyed to AGP Pro 1.5 volts. Thank you very much.